tus zapatillas. No importa la calidad del balón, ni el color de la camiseta, ni el estado de la cancha. No importa si juegas en la ciudad o en una vereda. Lo que importa son tus sueños y llenarlos de color para hacerlos realidad. Pinturas Tito Pavón, el color oficial del deporte colombiano.
Bienvenidos a Recamier, una empresa que ve más allá de la belleza. Una belleza que no es indiferente a los ojos y llega al alma a través de los sentidos. El color, la textura, la fragancia y el performance de nuestros productos avivan el glamour, logran revivir recuerdos y nos hacen soñar. Desde que se creó Recamier, el 15 de octubre de 1947, como un salón de belleza, nos prometimos ofrecer el mejor servicio de peluquería de Cali y a partir de 1954 entregamos a nuestros consumidores productos de altísima calidad. Le dimos vida a 11 marcas a lo largo de esta historia y cerca de 600 referencias que nos llenan de orgullo. Recamier, 75 años creando con amor un universo de belleza y emociones.
Uniendo fuerzas en la pasión por el deporte donde juntos, el Comité Olímpico Colombiano y Recamier S.A. nos comprometemos a impulsar el espíritu deportivo, con el mejor cuidado y la protección que se merecen nuestros deportistas y sus logros. Recamier, patrocinador oficial del Comité Olímpico Colombiano.
En el 2023, nuestras historias hacen historia.
Hoy les tengo algo que les va a encantar.
Todo lo que puedas imaginar, lo tenemos para ti. Amores que luchan contra todo.
Y vi a Horacio con una mujer.
¿Hasta cuándo voy a ser tu secreto?
¿Tú tienes otra mujer?
Sí. También personajes que cuando caen...
¡Párese, mijo! ¡Así es la vida!
Se levantan.
Hágale a ver que los jurados no nos rendimos ante nada.
Y hacen historia.
¡El hombre! ¡Que lidera la carrera! ¡Arriba!
Y las historias de nuestra gente.
Revisamos más noticias, atención.
Seguiremos por todo el país. Esto apenas está comenzando.
Cada mañana nos acompañamos.
La mejor actitud y buena vibra.
Nos conectamos porque las historias que se viven en familia son mejores.
La verdad es que yo no me cambio por nadie. Esto es sabroso, papá.
Digo, no quiero más trauma, ¿sí?
No, más trauma es difícil.
Usted no me quita a mis sobrinos ni muerta.
Y cuando tenemos invitados, se vuelven más divertidas.
Lo amo, que es un viejo muy papacito.
Nos llenan de orgullo.
¡Qué golazo!
El mundo de los deportes reunido en un solo lugar.
¡Se viene Colón, señoras y señores!
De sabor.
¡A cocinar, señores, a lo que vinieron! Bienvenidos a su segundo hogar.
Lo que viene para ellos no tiene comparación.
Seguiremos haciendo historia y será todo un reto.
¿Están listos? ¡Ya!
Es que esto es el infierno.
¡Ay, quiero vender!
Si contamos nuestras historias juntos, todo es posible. Porque en RCN, este 2023...
Me sigue sorprendiendo.
Nuestras historias hacen historia.
El deporte, más que un juego, es una forma de vida, que conecta emociones con ilusiones y metas por conquistar. Nuestros atletas, cuando sienten que ya no pueden más, se aferran a su anhelo de superación y perseverancia. Sacan fuerzas de donde no hay, para demostrarle al mundo que pueden todo. Y así logran conectar a 50 millones de corazones con un mismo sueño. Claro, orgulloso patrocinador del Comité Olímpico Colombiano.
No importa la marca de tus zapatillas. No importa la calidad del balón, ni el color de la camiseta, ni el estado de la cancha. No importa si juegas en la ciudad o en una vereda. Lo que importa son tus sueños y llenarlos de color para hacerlos realidad. Pinturas Tito Pavón, el color oficial del deporte colombiano.
Bienvenidos a Recamier, una empresa que ve más allá de la belleza. Una belleza que no es indiferente a los ojos y llega al alma a través de los sentidos. El color, la textura, la fragancia y el performance de nuestros productos avivan el glamour, logran revivir recuerdos y nos hacen soñar. Desde que se creó Recamier, el 15 de octubre de 1947, como un salón de belleza, nos prometimos ofrecer el mejor servicio de peluquería de Cali y a partir de 1954 entregamos a nuestros consumidores productos de altísima calidad. Le dimos vida a 11 marcas a lo largo de esta historia y cerca de 600 referencias que nos llenan de orgullo. Recamier, 75 años creando con amor un universo de belleza y emociones.
Uniendo fuerzas en la pasión por el deporte donde juntos, el Comité Olímpico Colombiano y Recamier S.A. nos comprometemos a impulsar el espíritu deportivo, con el mejor cuidado y la protección que se merecen nuestros deportistas y sus logros. Recamier, patrocinador oficial del Comité Olímpico Colombiano.
En el 2023, nuestras historias hacen historia.
Hoy les tengo algo que les va a encantar.
Todo lo que puedas imaginar, lo tenemos para ti. Amores que luchan contra todo.
Vivía Horacio con una mujer.
¿Hasta cuándo voy a ser tu secreto?
¿Tú tienes otra mujer?
Sí.
También personajes que cuando caen...
¡Párese, mijo! ¡Así es la vida!
Se levantan.
¡Hágale ver que los jurados no nos rendimos ante nada!
Y hacen historia.
¡El hombre! ¡El líder de la carrera! ¡Arriba!
Y las historias de nuestra gente.
Revisamos más noticias, atención.
Seguiremos por todo el país. Esto apenas está comenzando.
Cada mañana nos acompañamos.
La mejor actitud y buena vibra.
Nos conectamos porque las historias que se viven en familia son mejores.
La verdad que yo no me cambio por nadie. Esto es sabroso, papá.
Amigos, no quiero más traumas, ¿sí?
No, más trauma es difícil.
Usted no me quita a mis sobrinos ni muerta.
Y cuando tenemos invitados, se vuelven más divertidas.
Lo amo, que es un viejo muy papacito.
Nos llenan de orgullo.
¡Qué golazo!
El mundo de los deportes reunido en un solo lugar.
Se viene Colón, señoras y señores.
De sabor.
¡A cocinar, señores, a lo que vinieron! Bienvenidos a su segundo hogar.
Lo que viene para ellos no tiene comparación.
Seguiremos haciendo historia y será todo un reto.
¿Están listos? ¡Ya!
Es que esto es el infierno.
Si contamos nuestras historias juntos, todo es posible. Porque en RCN, este 2023,
Me sigue sorprendiendo.
nuestras historias hacen historia.
El deporte, más que un juego, es una forma de vida. Que conecte emociones con ilusiones y metas por conquistar. Nuestros atletas, cuando sienten que ya no pueden más, se aferran a su anhelo de superación y perseverancia. Sacan fuerzas de donde no hay para demostrarle al mundo que pueden todo. Y así logran conectar a 50 millones de corazones con un mismo sueño. Claro, orgulloso patrocinador del Comité Olímpico Colombiano.
No importa la marca de tus zapatillas, no importa la calidad del balón, ni el color de la camiseta, ni el estado de la cancha. No importa si juegas en la ciudad o en una vereda. Lo que importa son tus sueños.
Welcome into day 6 of Tokyo 2020. The venue is the Ariake Urban Sports Park, and the event, the sport, is the sport of BMX, a sport that's been at the Olympic Games since 2012. It's a sport that requires a huge amount of aerobic capacity, an incredible skill set, and lots of courage. 24 of the best men in the world and 24 of the best women in the world. It's been really warm here in Tokyo, and they're again 31 degrees, but it is overcast and there is just a little bit of a breeze. It is simply a stunning venue, and joining me in commentary is Rochelle Gilmore. Rochelle, by international standards, this track is about 10 to 15 seconds longer, which is going to be a big factor in how these athletes approach it.
Absolutely, and also how they've had to train and prepare for this course. Once it was released that it's a little bit longer, the whole preparation and training would have had to, be extended to cover that extra 10 seconds that they may have to complete over this course. So a completely different, even the track, you can see the layout of it is a little bit different to what we see at your normal World Cup BMX events.
And just that start, that can be up to 30 degrees in angle. We will have 24 athletes split into 4 groups of 6. They will then compete across 3 heats. So every athlete will have 3 runs as we do take you through the course. So first part, an opportunity to get into your work. That is the first of 3 berms. This here is what they would probably call the rhythm section of the course, and opportunities for the riders to really get the pumping going and to get into a rhythm. The third of the berms, and it is through to the finish line. It will be fast and it will be furious. A lot of obstacles, a lot of double jumps, and again, though, I would imagine, Rochelle, that they will use the first heat to get a little bit of a feel for this track. Yes, they want to put a good number on the board, but they will gain understanding as they move through heats 2 and 3.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be ferocious out of the gate in the first heat. A lot of nerves as well. Being they did have a test event here, but being the first heat of this championships, I think we'll see a lot of aggression out of the gate, wanting to get a clear run into that first berm.
So they'll all have 3 heats, the 24 athletes, 4 lots of 6 athletes. And the point system is quite simple. If you win your heat, you'll get 1 point, second 2 points, 3 third points, right down to 6. After the 3 heats, they add up your scores, and the 4 athletes in each heat with the lowest scores will move through to the semi-finals. And so 24 will get reduced to 16. And just looking at that start list today, and it is a simply world-class field. We do have a number of the athletes who won the medals in Rio back in 2016 on the start line today, which certainly will make it interesting because they will have a big number on their back. And that does include Connor Fields of the United States. So the first heat this morning is Heat 1.
Well, these athletes are some of the most explosive athletes in the world. They really push high powers, up around 2,000 watts off that gate. They've also got to have very fast reaction times too, because after they watch the lights, the time between when the gate drops is always slightly different, so they have to have a very fast reaction time.
So it'll be Sylvain Andre of France who will start closest to camera, and it will be Romain Mathieu who will start number 2 alongside of him. Kyle White of Great Britain also in this heat, number 3. And then we've got Nagasaka Yoshitaku of Japan, great to have Japan represented it. And then Corbin Shara of the United States. And rounding out this field of 6 is Alex Lindberg of South Africa. The start's so crucial, so important, so many races won from the start.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
And we are away. It is race 1 of Tokyo 2020 in the sport of BMX. And already a close, clean start. The South African competitor Lindberg just in a little bit of trouble as they come into the first berm.
And now they take it through the rhythm section, and it does look clean so far. The 2 riders from France being the favourites here, of course, in this heat, and they are really taking it on.
So it is Sylvain Andre and Romain Mathieu of France. And it will, as they turn, take this little hard left-hand sweep around the 3rd berm, now through to the finish line. And it will be the French who will cross the line by the looks of it, 1st and 2nd. And Great Britain rounding out the top 3, Kyle White. So it is immediately the 2 French riders who accumulate the lowest amount of points and just ease a little bit of the pressure as they head then into the 2nd heat, which will take place a little bit later on this morning.
Yeah, just watching the replay there, and the riders certainly getting a feel for the track. what lines to take, but being out in front, obviously a huge advantage for these riders. A little bit of a tussle going on there for second and third. A very smooth run for the first heat of the BMX at the Tokyo Olympics. The Frenchmen take control.
And there we go. It is Andre Sylvain and Romain Machu. Kai White of Great Britain, Corbin Sherrard, the American. Will take that fourth place, those 4 points will be added now to his score, that accumulated score across the 3 heats.
In this second heat, we're going to see, there was a lot of talk about the rider from Netherlands, Twain van Gent, whether he would race a double gear, which is not seen in BMX before. It's always been a part of the regulations that they can use gears. And there's a lot of suspicion around talks of the Dutch rider using 2 different gears, which would be 2 different cogs on the back, I would assume.
Yeah, normally it is just 1 gear ratio that they will look to run. And it's just trying to get that balance, isn't it, between being able to get the pedals over quickly, get that high leg turnover, but also making sure that you got enough power down. So we'll see Nick Kamen of the Netherlands. He will start on the right-hand side. Alongside of him will be Twan van Gent of the Netherlands, Halvis Barris of Latvia, Renato Rezende of Brazil, followed by Nicolas Torres, and then the Canadian representative James Palmer, starting across the far side of the track. In fact, we've just seen a little bit of a change there. It will be, in fact,
very interesting. The Dutch rider taking gate 8, he would have had preference, and it is very normal for him to take gate 8. Most riders take the inside gates, but Kimmerman, he likes to take gate 8. Very rare in BMX.
And away, good clean start across this field.
And he backed himself from gate 8 to try and take the lead, and he does with the speed into the first berm and into the rhythm section. Kimmerman takes the lead.
Nicely done, beautiful control. And this course just showing too, we're not quite seeing the gladiatorial nature we often see in BMX racing, where the tracks can be a little bit narrower, and that is good because it does mean that this will come down to just pure skill set, pure power, and at the moment they are in complete control, the 2 riders from the Netherlands.
And Van Gent, he comes home to take first place. And we haven't seen a close look at his bike, but if he was running 2 gears there, maybe that's... he has a replica course that was made by Red Bull back in the Netherlands just to test out this new 2-gear system, but then there was talk in the last few days that maybe it was just a lot of hype. But certainly because the track's a bit longer, the faster, when you get up to speed, if you can click into a harder gear, of course it can be of a benefit. And you see here just coming out of the corner how much power Van Gent has to take over Kimmerman in the final straight.
So it was Twan van Gent of the Netherlands who won that heat. Nick Kamen of the Netherlands second. And then it was the very impressive Brazilian who rounds out our top 3, Renato Rezende. James Palmer of Canada finishing in 6th, so he'll carry 6 points. Remember, it's the 4 athletes out of 3 accumulated heats in each group that will go through to the semi-finals.
Well, BMX, it looks like an anaerobic sport where they're usually only racing over 30 to 40 seconds, but it certainly also is an aerobic sport. They have to keep backing up as well. Be very, very tired and fatigued at the end of the day of BMX racing.
So you will get a really good idea of that course at the moment. Doesn't, as we alluded to, doesn't appear to be as technical as we've seen previously. A look there at Competitor number 155, that's Evgeny Klitschenko of ROC. This heat will also feature Simon Marcar of Switzerland, Joris Daudet of France, Vincent Palliouat of Colombia, Joris Hermansen of the Netherlands, and Tore Navrestad of Norway. So again, the Netherlands out to the right-hand side.
It's definitely a longer distance from gate 8, but the riders from the Netherlands, they like to take the outside gate to stay out of trouble and just really rely on their power down that first straight to get into the berm.
Well, a lot of research has been done in terms of where there is the advantage in BMX racing, and the UCI have said, look, they try and set it up so it doesn't really, where you sit in the starting gate, there's no real one advantage, but what they will say is that it can be one in terms of how quickly you do get off the line. A lot of research to say that if you're a good starter, there's a better chance you're going to finish up the top of the order. And let's just have a look here as we see Simon Marquette of the Netherlands going wide, but comes back now. He's got a little bit of work to do if he's to catch the French rider who takes control of this race at the moment.
It's Joris Daudet out in front with Netherlands chasing Switzerland in third. So they just pump their way through this section, trying to keep maximum speed.
So Simon Marcar of France. And in the finish, it will be the France, Netherlands and Norway. It'll finish in that order. So Joris Daudet taking out that particular heat, heat 3.
You can just see here in the replay, it was the fight into the first corner. The Frenchman, Daudet, he takes the lead. And then it's about who can get on the pedals the fastest. But it was just impossible from the rider from Netherlands, Joris Hermansen, just trying to chase back. But it's all about that start, how much power they can get out of the gate, those first few pedal strokes. And then it's a course that's looking to be very hard to pass on. Very wide, so the course has to be between, well, it has to be not narrower than 5 meters wide, but they really do have quite a wide track here. So the starting ramp is 8 meters high, and it needs to be between 9 and 10 meters wide at the start, and then the first straight can be from 8 to 9 meters. So Joris Daudet puts on the ice vest straight away.
Yeah, it's been very warm. We saw in the men's and women's road races and the cycling that just how quickly early on in those bike races the riders were going back, getting the ice, getting the water, and that's really been a common theme across a lot of the sports in the outdoors that do have a high aerobic component to it, just trying to keep that core temperature down as we move now to heat 4. So 24 riders in this men's field, 4 heats, 6 riders in each. They will stay in their groups of 6 across the 3 heats. That will change, however, when 24 gets to reduced to 16 for the semi-finals. So we'll just run through that starting list for you for this heat. So David Graf of Switzerland. We've got Carlos Ramirez of Colombia. Giacomo Fantini of Italy. The defending champion Connor Fields of the United States. Anthony Dean of Australia. And then we've got Alfredo Campo of Ecuador. They would have had a wee look at the heats that have gone already. They will make a couple of mental notes and maybe just make a few adjustments in how they want to approach this particular race.
Very concentrated Anthony Dean on the start line there.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch
Good clean start, great start coming from David Graff, the Swiss rider. And does he take advantage of that? He does. He will lead as he comes through this first berm, this little left-hand turn. Now back through the rhythm section. It's all Graff at the moment, though. Good race for second and third. Nice move coming from the Australian, Anthony Dean. He takes a big tumble, and that is disaster for the Australian. Boy, he landed hard too. And now the American, though, Connor Fields, moves into second place. And another crash. Now this course is starting to play just a little bit of havoc, a little bit of chaos and carnage. Boy, Heat 4's throwing it all up, but it is Graff of Switzerland who will finish in first place. The American, the defending champion, Connor Fields, in second. Ouch. And it will be the Italian who will end up finishing third, Giacomo Fantini. And good to see both riders back up right in. Important they do finish. They do want to get those accumulative points. But that just shows you the fine line they ride in the sport of BMX.
Yeah, they do say in BMX, if you haven't crashed in a championship, you've not been trying hard enough. But these riders are very, very skilled bike riders. So there was a little bit of fight for positioning going on, and maybe a touch of bikes in the air for the Australian. We can see here. The replay. Connor Fields just comes underneath and takes the lead. Oh, the Australian not knowing where to land his front wheel on the back of the rider from the USA, Connor Fields. And you could see him switch in the air there.
Well, he almost sort of landed just slightly flat, didn't he? Which is the worst thing you want to do. He just overshoots a little bit, just almost an overjump, misses the backside.
And an endo here.
Another example of it there. And we would have seen, these riders would have had a lot of time on this course, but there's one thing practicing it, it's another thing in a race situation when suddenly the Olympic rings are sitting and hovering above your head, and there's all of those sort of peripheral things that can't necessarily be measured, but already drama. And there we go, Graff Fields. And it is the Italian who will pick up 3 points as well, Giacomo Fantini. But good to see Alfredo Campo and Anthony Dean getting across the line and picking up valuable points. But the pressure now immediately goes back on them when they come through to their second run on this course. And as we've mentioned, it is actually about 10 to 15 seconds longer this course than what the athletes are historically used to, and it is also a little bit wider. The minimum width for a BMX track is 5 metres. Now, it is the turn of the women. No changes for the women's course. They race the same course as the men's. Again, they have had the benefit of having to look at how the men have approached this. Now, this first heat will include the defending Olympic champion, Mariana Pajon of Colombia. As we now have another look at the course here, a double through that first straight, then they hit the berm. This is the rhythm section. You'll see them do a lot of pumping here. Another double, plenty of speed required. And then it's all about concentration. As the heart rate increases, the lactic acid builds up. It's all about focus through to the finish line. So a total length of 495 metres. It's not a sport for the faint-hearted.
You've definitely got to be fearless, especially out of that gate. You've just got to give it absolutely everything to get a tyre in front of the riders next to you. It's all about trying to get into that berm first.
Well, it's 30-degree angle now in road cycling, when a lot of people watch a lot of that, say the Tour de France, a 10% gradient is considered very steep, so 30% when you're standing at the top of it. I'd imagine some of the riders feel like they're about to launch themselves down one of those ski jumps that you see at the Winter Olympic Games. But you've got to use that momentum, don't you? It's there to actually help you.
Yeah, that's where the initial power is, and then for an athlete from BMX, it's that repetitive, explosive power that they need to get out throughout the course just to try and maintain speed. It's all about maintaining speed.
Yeah, and also at times using the pumping motion, using some of that skill set to try and minimise turning the pedals, take the little bits of recovery. They'll use a technique called the pre-lift pickup, which is lifting the front wheel of their bike. And so this will feature, as we said, the Olympic champion, Marianne Pageant, Meryl Schmolders of the Netherlands in this heat as well. We have Patent Redina of the United States, Simone Christensen of Denmark, Elke van Hoof of Belgium, and then it will be Chutidikan Kitwanat Sathian of Thailand. So great to have representatives from the continents here, and great to have Asian representation. So, Marianne Pageant, 29 years of age. The youngest competitor in the field is Patent Redina of the United States at just 19 years of age.
We've heard about some really superstar young riders at the age of 16 and 17 wanting to compete at the Olympics. They have reduced the minimum age to 18. It used to be 19, so you do need to be 18 to compete at the Olympic Games. A lot of people start BMX at a very young age. I started in the under 5 boys category with my brothers when I was 3 years old, getting pushed up over the jumps. But it'll be the same story for a lot of these riders, been racing since they were 4 or 5 years old.
It's a common trait, isn't it? You talk to a lot of the elite athletes in women's sport and they say, oh, my brothers pushed me. It was my big brothers. It was my big brothers. And then you get a lot of the top elite athletes saying, look, actually it was my little sister that pushed me, or my older sister that pushed me. So it is amazing how it is that sibling rivalry that actually sparks the interest in the sport.
Absolutely.
So now just in that weighting system, they would have done a lot of visualising of this course too. They'll know what they need to do. But it's interesting, isn't it? The crash that we saw there in Heat 4 of the men's, this wasn't through the touching of bikes. Those crashes were through over jumping and almost a little bit of indecision. It might be a bit tough, but almost sort of unforced type errors.
Yeah, I think the first one we saw with the Australian, he took a lot of height and he was just trying to decide if he was going to try and land on the right or left of the rider in front of him. In the end, he clipped his foot out of the pedal, and at that point, he was not able to land confidently. So that's one of the revolutions in BMX racing now. They race with their feet clipped into the pedals.
And you'll see that too. You can just see that they'll have their cleats on. So they'll just clip those in.
Yeah, most of the riders will be on a mountain bike type shoe. Some do choose to use a road shoe, but obviously the cleats then more exposed and could be damaged. So it's mostly mountain bike shoes.
So interesting to see Elke van Hoof across on the left-hand side. Marianne Pageant deciding that she wants the inside running. Patent Redina, the young American, also deciding to go on the right. The start so important. First heat of the women's BMX Day 6 of Tokyo 2020.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
Well, Pageant, the queen of cycling, has got a good start. She's going to take the first corner in first position.
Yeah, great skill set too, just really gets the pedals going, knows when to back off, but the challenge now comes from the very good Dutch rider at the moment, Merel Schmolders. So it is Schmolders who's just moving up, but it will be Pageant who will have the inside running and therefore will get the benefit coming out of that second berm. And now she starts to take control. The defending Olympic champion, so it is Colombia in first, the Netherlands in second. And as they do come around that final berm towards the finish line, this is a comfortable victory for arguably the biggest name out of Colombia in Pageant.
Pageant, she is the queen of BMX, and there was a big question mark over how she'd come into this Olympic Games at the age of 29. She's been dominant for so long, but that was a pretty dominant ride. She had a little bit of pressure on her there from Schmolders, but she used her experience, momentum of the bike, just to push and nudge in front. Very experienced riding there for the Colombian queen of BMX. I actually think there was a little bit more power and speed from the Dutch rider, but it's the experience of Pageant that puts her in the lead in the first corner. You can see more pressure there from Smolder, but watch the momentum with the bike there just to push in front again.
And that's that pumping motion at times, and you want your bike and your body to be working as one. You need to be a rhythm, particularly what they call through the rhythm section. That's where you can make up a lot of time, but she's just a beautifully balanced bike rider, isn't she? You can just sort of see that skill set, very much one with her machine.
Yeah, you can see when she jumps, she doesn't jump as high, so she's getting a faster line in the air than her competitors that are taking a little bit more height, to be cautious of not cresting the jump. But beautiful ride there by Pageant. You can see they switch onto a bike with a higher seat post right at the finish line.
Yeah, one of the many stunning venues here in Tokyo for Tokyo 2020. I've got to say, they have presented the Olympic Games absolutely beautifully, the Japanese. They're just such gracious, welcoming people. I do encourage people post the COVID era, do get yourself to Japan. Go on a holiday, experience this wonderful country. So this too should be a fascinating heat. We've got Laura Schmolders of the Netherlands, Axel Etienne of France, Felicia Stancil of the United States, Priscilla Stavo of Brazil, and we also have Drew Mickelson of Canada. Natalia Suvarova of ROC also on the start line, but it is Schmolders of the Netherlands closest to us. Axel Etienne alongside of her, representing France. And good clean start too, very good start from Etienne of France. Let's just have a look as they approach this first berm. Who's deciding to go out really hard and put the pressure on early? And immediately it is Laura Schmolders of the Netherlands in complete control.
They're closely followed by Stancil of the USA, but Schmolders motivated by the Dutch in the last heat. Schmolders and Stancil's coming back at her now, just really getting those cranks moving, pumping through this section. It's going to be a close finish.
Well, Stancil, yeah, she's now really starting to make her move, isn't it? She's time to run. This is a brilliant ride from the American, so it will be Felicia Stancil who will end up taking out this second heat. And then comfortably, Laura Schmolders of the Netherlands and Axel Etienne of France, and that is how it'll finish in the top three. But understanding all riders across the line do pick up points, but clearly you want to get as few points as possible across the three heats so that you do end up becoming one of the 16 athletes to race in the semi-finals. But boy, I've got to say, Felicia Stancil of the United States, she was patient. She just took better lines.
Yeah, and she had a bit of more explosive power too when she was accelerating out of the berms, and it was in this straight number 3 where she basically, this is the finish, but we missed straight number 3 where she actually took over Smulders. Directly the cold towel, try to cool the neck, longer seat post.
Well, look, you've got a distance of about 500 metres, but you can just see how hard they are breathing. This is such an anaerobic sport. And as we've said, this course is about 15 seconds longer, so they've had to adjust the way they've trained. It is explosive, but there is an element of endurance about it too, because it's not just about how well you race, you've also got to recover. And I always say that recovery is really the best judge of fitness and form.
Absolutely, that's the thing about BMX racing. You have to be so fit, be able to keep backing up. Like a sprinter on the track, of course, they think it's a very anaerobic power thing, but by the end of all of their quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, it's very taxing. BMX is just such a wonderful sport for youngsters because nearly all youngsters have a BMX, and it's not too hard to find a local BMX track in Australia, for example. As we now see 2 Australians line up in this heat.
Yep, this will be the 3rd heat. We'll run through that starting lineup for you. So it will feature Lauren Reynolds of Australia, Zoe Klessens of Switzerland, the Latvian rider Vanetta Pedersen, Manon Valentino of France, Beth Shriver of Great Britain, and also out of Australia, Saya Sakakibara, 23 years of age, in fact 21 years of age. This will be a very, very competitive group amongst these 6 riders. So 2 Australians. Zoe Klessens of Switzerland, closest to camera.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
And just like coiled springs, they explode out of the blocks. A very good even start, but at the moment it is Klessens of Switzerland who has the narrowest of leads, but the challenges are coming on the outside, and those challenges include Bethany Shriver.
Oh, through this pump section, got to keep that momentum going. You can see the Australians are just in a bit of difficulty back there. But it's a Swiss rider, and they've had a really good cycling Olympic Games so far.
So it is Zoe Klessens who leads this, but only narrowly over Beth Shriver of Great Britain. In fact, it is now Shriver who takes the lead in that final boom. So it's Great Britain followed by Switzerland, and then it is Australia in 3rd place at the moment. That's how it will finish, in a nice little battle for those all-important points in 4th, 5th and 6th. But it is Reynolds of Australia finishes in 3rd. Klessens of Switzerland in 2nd, and not dissimilar to what we saw in the previous heat, a really well-judged race from heat winner Bethany Shriver of Great Britain.
We're just watching the replay here and the fight into that first berm. And this is where it came a little bit crowded for the riders behind. Klessens of Switzerland. When we see the Australian go off track here, I think it's on the straight, yeah, that's where it happened. One of the big favourites for this Olympic Games, Sakakibara. She's got a lot of work to do now in the next few heats.
Well, it does put pressure on if you do find yourself, as you're a more fancied rider, or you're coming here with a bigger reputation, you finish 5th and 6th, remembering it's your accumulated points over the 3 heats, and it's the lowest 4 scores that will progress out of each group into those semi-finals. So if you win a race, you get 1 point. If you finish 2nd, you get 2 points, and so on down through to 6. So immediately the pressure goes back on one of the Australian riders, and it is Sakakibara. That Lauren Reynolds, well, she'll feel reasonably happy with that performance. Manon Valentino of France finishing 5th, therefore picking up 5 points. Fourth and final of the women's heats before we then go back for the second round of the men. Heat 2 for the men's.
Well, keep an eye on the American in this heat, Elise Willoughby. She is the partner of Australia's superstar Sam Willoughby, who no doubt you would know has been in and out of a wheelchair since a bad accident following the Rio Olympics. Yeah, he was silver at the Olympics, and then not too long after that, just a training accident, and it was quite horrific. He broke quite a few bones in his neck, and he's now he did find the strength to walk down the aisle to get married to Elise Willoughby, who starts in this race.
So it will be Elise Willoughby, Sei Hategayama, or Hategayama Sei of Japan, Judy Boer of the Netherlands, Dominica Asvero of Ecuador, Rebecca Petch of New Zealand, nice even start. Let's keep an eye. The New Zealander got away quickly, but it is all about the Dutch rider at the moment. And again, lane one. So Judy Boer of the Netherlands with the early lead. In fact, the lead change now goes to Willoughby of the United States, as mentioned in the build-up. Another rash taken. Petch of New Zealand now moving into third place. Good start for Petch, she knocked out fellow countrywoman. Oh, in fact, she takes a nasty spill, the New Zealander. She'll need to get up and try and finish that race. Well, we've seen that, particularly in Heat 4 of the men's, now Heat 4 of the women's, but it is Willoughby of the United States who just absolutely is in cruise control now. She'll just want to back it off, try and conserve as much energy as she can. Judy Boer of the Netherlands, she'll finish in second place. And then it might be Natalia Aramova. In fact, it is Awero, Dominica Asvero of Ecuador, who will finish in third. But boy, that is a nasty, nasty crash.
Yeah, she looks like she could be injured.
Just have a look here. Petch, the New Zealander, getting nice and high on the berm, which means that she'll get good speed kicking out of that corner. Might have just touched that back wheel, did she? Just have a look here, some wonderful images. Just got squeezed. And that is a heavy landing for the Japanese rider, Hatakeyama Sei.
Oh, I'm not sure what happened there. She touched the inside of the track, went over the handlebars on a hard landing.
Just have another look here. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's almost like the front wheel locked up, didn't it?
May have come too tight into that corner. But what we can take from the women's 4 heats we've seen so far, the USA and the Netherlands, and some of the French riders particularly strong in this first run for the women. Elise Willoughby, very determined to take gold here in Tokyo. And her biggest rival, Saya from Australia, she is starting from behind now with finishing last in her heat.
So we will now go back to the men's schedule. All 24 of the men have raced. And then we'll go back through the lineup again. There will be 4 heats. It'll be their second run for each. If we just look at the Japanese rider here, you do have to feel for Hatakeyama Sei of Japan, 22 years of age.
Well,
and there's Rebecca Petch. She is walking. That'll be a relief for the New Zealand contingent. She is a class bike rider. Very quiet.
They're disappointed with that crash on the first run, but she's still got 2 more runs to go. It'll just about mentally getting it back together.
Yeah, and just hoping that the adrenaline will just maybe initially ease any real pain that I'm sure they'll feel later on in the day. Certainly they'll feel overnight. We all know what it's like initially when you pick up injuries. It's often not so bad. It's a couple of hours later that the pain and the soreness really does kick in. But they will be aware of the dangers. They've all had crashes. They've all been there. I mean, very rarely when you talk to young BMX riders do they ever come away from a weekend of racing without having crashed.
Absolutely. I can speak from experience. There wouldn't have been a weekend in my childhood of BMX racing every weekend that I wouldn't have a crash. Of course, we have to go through a few more heats than they do here at the Olympics. And they're just ranked straight into the quarterfinals here at the Olympics, so not as many motos to go through, but large participation in Australia for BMX, and you can always expect to have crashes. And I think that's why BMXers, they do come from a young age where they get over that fear very young. And, you know, if you crash, get straight back up again. And when you're younger, obviously not breaking bones and having serious injuries. But it is a wonderful sport. It's quite a social sport as well.
Yeah, but it's yeah, when you get to the Olympic Games, it's a different track. It's longer. We've certainly seen that those berms, they've got a steep embankment on them, and not dissimilar to what you see in a velodrome, the banking that you can get in a velodrome as well. And so if you are going to take those right or left-hand turns, you know, your pedals touching the ground. There are all those little things that you do have to factor in here.
Yeah, and BMX riders, interestingly, ride quite long cranks, so that in the men 175 to 180 millimeter cranks, so you've really got to get your timing right when you start to pedal out of berms and go into berms. So yeah, interestingly, obviously the longer lever giving them more acceleration off the gate and out of the berms. So most riders in the men's division will be riding 175 to 180 millimeter long cranks. In the women, 170 to 175 millimeters.
Which is very long, considering by road standards there's been a real shift actually to shorter cranks now to 165. Back in the day, I think, you know, 172 millimeter was sort of the standard cranks for men's and women's road cycling. So that just gives you an idea, and they're only on 20-inch wheels, aren't they? So yeah, the cranks proportionate to the bike are actually very long. Now that's all about leverage, but again, that is the danger of those steep embankments and not quite getting your lines right.
Some riders can be a little bit distracted by other riders being so close to them. BMX is recognised as a contact sport. However, you can't just run straight into an athlete on purpose, but it is a contact sport and there's always bound to be crashes. But yeah, the BMX bikes, they haven't developed too much. As we say, we usually see one chainring on the front, one cog on the back. They just use a rib. There we go. That was the bike of Van Gent, and it does look like he's riding double gears because he had a lever on the left side of his bike. So they only run a rear brake, they don't run a front brake. And he, if we get another look at that bike, has a lever on the left side to change gears throughout the race, which is maybe a first in BMX at the highest level.
And that will be simply to probably be a gear that might just allow him, it'll be what we call probably a slightly harder gear, but that'll allow him just to press a bit harder, and therefore hopefully give himself a little bit more power.
Well, it's a big exercise to go to the double cog on the back, because it's a whole new bike that has to be developed with a larger rear stay and longer axle and things like that. So, and then you've also got the chain line, trying to keep it as straight as possible. So there is a lot of work going into the bike of the Dutchman.
And here we have a look at Corbin Sharap of the United States, 29 years of age. He was 18th at the World Championships back in 2019. Mathieu Romain of France, 26 years of age. We've got Kyle White of Great Britain. Nagasako Yoshitaku of Japan. Sylvain Andre of France as well. So two French riders in this heat. Alex Lindbergh of South Africa as well. They are the 6 riders. This is their second run. I guess they now have the benefit of having a race. They've now got an understanding of what it's like in the white-hot atmosphere of the Olympic Games. They will make a couple of mental adjustments. They'll go, look, I didn't perhaps hit that particular jump as well as I could. I maybe needed to back off a little bit of speed in certain parts of this course. But that start's so important. History in BMXing will say, get off to a good start, and you can take control of the race, particularly as we start to get towards the finals, and I guess the gap between the riders starts to reduce, and you're starting to play with small, very, very small percentages in regards to performances from one athlete to another. So it'll be
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
So it'll be Sylvain Andre and Romain Mathieu, the 2 French riders. They'll be looking to try and take control. Good start here, though, coming from the English rider Kai White. Yes. He has taken the lead too, so he is starting to dictate teams to the more experienced and the more fancied of the riders in Romain Mathieu.
Fantastic start by Kai White as he takes him into the rhythm section. The 2 Frenchmen were 1 and 2 in the last heat, and now we have got Kai White from Great Britain taking the lead and looking very stylish while doing it. Just has a look over his shoulder. He knows he'll have to keep it going all the way to the finish line.
Well, the challenge now comes on the outside, and who will it be? It will be, in fact, France that will get across the Rhine. So
Sylvain Andre takes the win.
Yeah, Sylvain Andre, Kai White, Romain Mathieu. That is how it'll finish in terms of 1, 2 and 3. Alex Lindbergh of South Africa rounding out the top 6.
Well, it really looked like Kai White had everything in control, and it was Sylvain Andre that came back hard.
Well, he looked a little bit casual after he got through this rhythm section here. This is the start of the rhythm section here. He actually almost had a little bit of a look back, but I just wonder, we talked about the length of this track, just wonder whether that last 10 to 15 seconds, this is a great example of just popping a little bit, which is a cycling phrase for when you just start to lose a bit of energy. But you'd look at the expression there, I don't think he's too concerned, is he? I think he felt, well, hey, look, you know what, I'm just going to do enough to get through to the semi-finals at this point. And so far, doing a really good job, the man from the UK.
Yeah, it did look like he wanted to back it off a bit and not push it all the way to the finish line. Let's get a kiss blown there by Andre.
And there we go. That's just confirming it. Sylvain Andre, Kai White, Romain Mathieu, and good performance from Nagasako Yoshitaku of Japan. Great to have the locals, or the local athletes, being involved on the world stage, but competing on a world stage too, being really, well and truly entrenched in the contest. It's an overcast day in Tokyo, around 27 degrees. Mercury is increasing. One of the many world-class facilities that they have put on for these Olympic Games. Cannot fault the hospitality of the locals.
No, it's been fantastic. The locals here have just been so kind-hearted. Nothing's too much trouble. Japanese volunteers all around the city, not just at the venues, but everywhere around the city. And they seem to know everything you have a question for, they have an answer for. So it's been quite a nice experience with the local volunteers helping out around the city.
This is Heat 2, the second run. Van Gent of the Netherlands. Cayman of the Netherlands. So 2 Dutch riders in this.
Okay, riders.
Rezonde, Torres.
Riders ready, watch the gate.
Babris and Palmer are your riders. Good start too, once again from the Dutch riders. Van Gent gets away nicely on that inside. And his fellow countryman, Cayman, who starts to challenge, but nicely taken the angle here from Torres of Argentina, starting to really sort of put a bit of a heat on them. But it will be Van Gent who is comfortable heading into the second berm.
Yeah, and Kimmen of the Netherlands in second place. Now we just see how that gear changes with the 2 gears is really making it look easy for the Dutchman out in front. Van Gent.
Yeah, Van Gent and Nick Kamen, and it'll be the Netherlands 1 and 2, so almost a repeat of the first run for this particular group of riders. But great finish there from the Argentinian Torres. He'll be delighted to pick up 3 points. Rezonde of Brazil rounding out our top 4. Yeah, nice move here from Torres. 2 Dutch riders going high on the embankment. And it was Torres that said, look, I'll take the inside running. That'll cut down my distance. But then we saw the Dutch riders get the kick off the back of that berm. They got a little bit more height, so they then came into this rhythm section with a little bit more speed.
Yeah, beautiful execution of the Dutch riders there. And interestingly, in the rules of BMX, you are not allowed to assist another rider in any way. It's very hard to determine how they do that, but you can see the 2 Dutchmen just happy to roll in there.
Yeah, I was going to say team tactics. The only way I think you can employ team tactics is if you did a level of blocking to somebody, but then you're really going to put your life on the line, aren't you? Because if you're blocking another rider at a certain speed, there's a good chance you're going to come down as well. But look, it's just the understanding in the sport is that it is an individual sport. And the thing with BMXing, you know, everybody just has such a high level of integrity, and that's certainly what I do love about the sport. And there we do. So it was Kamen who actually ended up winning that heat from Twin Van Gent. Nicholas Torres in third. They will still have 1 more ride, and then all the points will be accumulated. 2 riders will drop out of that particular group, and 4 will move through to the semi-finals. It is now heat 3. In this heat, we've got Simon Marquardt of Switzerland, Joris Daudet of France, Vincent Pelluat of Colombia, Joris Hermansen of the Netherlands, Tore Navrestad of Norway, and Evgeny Klyshenko of ROC. And that is the points as they stand after the first heat. So a little bit of pressure on those riders that finished 5th and 6th.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
We are underway, and this is the second run for the riders in heat 3.
He's had a great start into that corner. You could hear the brakes there as they were just coming into the first berm, but the Frenchman looks like he's got everything in control at the moment.
Yeah, Marquet of Switzerland's got a little bit of work to do, but it is France, it is the Netherlands taking control of the second run. There's going to need to be a lot of work done from riders 3, 4, 5 and 6 if they change the pecking order at the front of this bike race. But it will be Joris Daudet who will comfortably come down, cruise across the line and take out this heat over Joris Hermansen of the Netherlands. And then it will be the man from Norway, Tore Navrestad, who will finish in 3rd place.
Well, as we said, it's the French, the Dutch, the USA riders that are dominating these heats. Another interesting aspect of this course is that the finish line comes very quickly after the last jump. So there's no real flat space to sprint it out when it comes to the finals. Daudet took a perfect line into that first corner and he just held on.
Yeah, you do just get a sense too as we get to when they all get their 3rd run that these riders will really start to get an understanding of this course, and I think it'll end up being a lot cleaner too. And the cleaner you can ride, the more efficient it is. That is the less energy. Well, you're conserving a lot more energy, aren't you? As we just have a look at that on the line, that is for 4th, 5th and 6th. Of course, those points so incredibly important.
Back into the ice vest, keep that core temperature cool.
And just confirming those results for you. Bit of work for Evgeny Klashenko, picking up the 6 points as we move now on to Heat 4. This has got David Graf of Switzerland. Carlos Ramirez, the bronze medalist from 2016 out of Colombia. Giacomo Fantini of Italy. Connor Fields, the defending champion of the United States. Anthony Dean of Australia. Alfredo Campo of Ecuador.
Well, the Australian Anthony Dean, he usually has a very fast start out of the gate. He needs to make up some points, lose some points as we should say, finish towards the front.
Well, he crashed heavily, didn't he, in his first run?
Picked up 5 points, so let's hope this is a better run for the Australian. He looks focused.
So they're really just like coiled springs, just waiting to explode.
Another revolution in BMX is the gate is actually higher now, so the riders can't jump over it before it drops.
And we are away, and very good start from the defending champion Connor Fields of the United States. He's happy to let David Graf, though, maybe take the lead through this first berm. But boy, a little bit of a pile-up coming to Carlos Ramirez of Colombia in the mix as well, the bronze medalist from 5 years ago. But at the moment, it is Graf of Switzerland comfortably in control of this race. Connor Fields, though, begins to make his move.
A little bit of hustle and bustle there amongst the riders, but it is going to be the United States and Switzerland, the top two.
Yeah, nice work there from Connor Fields. He just took David Graf high on that berm, didn't he? And Anthony Dean of Australia, well, real pressure on him, 5th in that first heat, 5th again here.
Yeah, not looking good for the Australian.
But it was Fields, Graf and Ramirez. They are your first three.
Connor Fields and Graf being in the top two in the last heat as well. You can just see how close these riders are. Touch of the brakes coming into the first berm.
So some wonderful images coming off this remarkable BMX facility. The Ariake Urban Sports Park, purpose-built for the Olympic Games. It's a long track by international standards. We'll just have a look at here. Pretty close finish, but I'll give it to the Australian Anthony Dean. So he will pick up 5 points. But Connor Fields, he wins that heat, so he has accumulated score so far through 2 rounds of 3 points, as does David Graf of Switzerland. So at the moment it's Alfredo Campo and Anthony Dean that are on the cusp of being eliminated. Giacomo Fantini of Italy, well, he's still got some work to do, but you'd sort of think at the moment that 3 of those 6 probably feeling reasonably happy about moving through as one of the 4 semi-finalists out of that group.
Well, I've just had a text come through from one of my friendly rivals from back in the BMX days. We were very young, but Alyssa Fuller is watching from Australia, and we would go head-to-head nearly every weekend in our childhood as we go into the women's second run. Schmolders been strong, the Dutch, in the women's.
Well, they're just good across all forms of bike riding, aren't they? The Dutch, very flat country, so it's a sport that's pretty conducive to their natural geography. As we just have a look at Mariana Pajon, the defending Olympic champion out of Colombia. Look at that, just so incredibly focused. Certainly not showing any nerves. Maybe they're internalizing a little bit.
I think it would be remarkable if Pajon takes another Olympic title at the age of 29 in BMX.
Well, certainly she was very impressive in her first round.
Yeah, she looks quite relaxed there. So these riders, well, the ones that make it through, they'll back up tomorrow for the semi-finals and finals.
Elke van Hoof is the Belgian rider. We've got Merel Schmolders of the Netherlands and the 19-year-old out of the United States, Peyton Redina. Simone Christensen of Denmark, all just waiting patiently. They would have gone through this a lot on the World Cup circuit. They will have established warm-up protocols they would have gone through, right down to possibly even the type of music they might listen to. It's amazing how you can have that breakthrough race on the World Cup circuit or at a national level, and you listen to a certain song before that, and that then becomes the song you want to go to, hoping that somehow it's going to get you in the same space and allow you to feel like you did on that particular day.
Yeah, different athletes definitely have different triggers. They might not be superstitious, but I remember a coach once said to me that the times you wake up in the morning and tell me that your legs are a little bit stiff and sore are the days you have your best days. So there are little signs there that you could be on an on day or an off day.
It's amazing that, isn't it, how you can somehow think that maybe it's not going to be your best training session, you feel tired, and then you actually get into the session and you can come away from it going, wow, that was actually just so much better than I thought. And these athletes will know that, and particularly the more experienced one. Don't make any decision on how you're feeling or your form until you're actually into a session or into a race environment.
Yeah, it's interesting in cycling. You often get, in all sports, somebody asks you how you're feeling the morning of a race and you haven't even touched the bike, and you're like, well, I don't know yet because I haven't been on the bike. But yeah, generally these riders have worked so hard that their physical ability, if they've managed to be at top form on the day, it's just all about that mental, that mental drive, ambition, frame of mind when you get on the start line. And obviously here in BMX you need to be really switched on from the start. It's all about what's going through your mind on that gate and your reaction time when the gate drops.
So these first 6 women have already had one race. This is their second heat. They will have 3 races in this first round. 24 riders in total. The semi-final will involve just 16 of them. The rider from Thailand there, Chutitakan Kidwanit Sathian, 22 years of age. Incredibly explosive sport, so they use what they call a lot of fast twitch, burn a lot of glycogen, which is the energy stores in the body. But they would have shown their body in training what happens on race day, so they would have done a lot of repetition. They would have tried to replicate these conditions. What time am I racing? Well, okay, I'm racing at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, let's start trying to do some harder sessions at 10 o'clock in the morning. Let's go back an hour. What am I going to eat? What am I going to drink in the lead up to this race, to these races? And then how much recovery have I got between the heats? What am I going to do in that recovery time? So show your body in training what happens on race day. Make it a habit.
That certainly would have been the routine of a lot of these riders. And of course, if you're in different places around the world, you could end up doing your training in the middle of the night. So it's very important to get that body clock really switched on at the right time so it becomes natural on the day. One day in 4 years, you have the opportunity to take a gold medal in your respective sports at the Olympic Games.
So we just saw a shot there of the young American athlete, Peyton Redina. The athlete from Denmark is Simone Christensen. Elke van Hoof of Belgium. And Merel Schmolders of the Netherlands. And then the great Mariana Pajon of Colombia.
Pajon and Smolders, who took 1 and 2 in the first run. So now lining up for their second run. And Pajon takes position number 1 on the inside, as she did in her last run.
There is advantages and disadvantages in terms of where you start, where you position yourself at the top of the start gate.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
And the gate does go down. Very good start coming across the far side of the track from Elke van Hoof of Belgium, but immediately Pajon in control. And as we saw in the first heat, Merel Schmolders of the Netherlands too sits right on her wheel. The Pajon now gets into the rhythm section.
This is what we saw last time, Schmolders coming up on the outside, and through the next section we saw Pajon really push ahead, but very closely contested by these two.
Simone Christensen of Denmark also beginning to make her move. In fact, she goes past Schmolders. I just wonder whether Schmolders might have slipped a gear or something, but she is slowing down dramatically. But it is all Pajon, the defending champion. She'll come through and comfortably take out the second heat. Now a little bit of a challenge though coming from Christensen, but it will be Pajon, Christensen, and it will be Merel Schmolders of the Netherlands. And I just wonder whether Schmolders might have had a little mechanical issue there, because she did just suddenly lose a lot of speed when she looked like she was about to challenge the great one in Mariana Pajon.
The queen of BMX, there she is. She certainly hasn't lost it. Experience goes a long way. So we'll see in this replay what actually happens to Schmolders. She comes up on the middle of the track here, actually takes the lead as she did in the first heat. But the momentum of the bike for Pajon, she goes into the lead. And then we see Schmolders just coming back. Something happened here. Maybe she just didn't clear that jump and just lost her rhythm. But third will be good enough. She was second in the last run.
Well, it's amazing, and it is 2 from 2 from Mariana Pajon. So she's got 2 points from 2 races, which is best case scenario. And Schmolders will finish in third, the young American finishing in fourth and picking up 4 points to give her a total of 9 through 2 rounds. Will it be enough for her to advance through to the top 16? Well, one more race for them all to do, and then we will certainly have that confirmed.
Pajon, the queen of BMX, she is certainly looking like she's in a strong position. Hit top form at the right time. There was a question mark over this Olympic Games for Pajon, but she certainly has shown from day one that she's on top form.
So just running through it, so it will be Laura Schmolders of the Netherlands. We've got Axel Etienne of France, Felicia Stansel of the United States, Priscilla Stavo of Brazil, and then we've got Drew Mikkelsen of Canada. So good to see Canadian representation. It was Stansel who took out the first heat. Schmolders of the Netherlands was second, and Etienne of France was third. Will it stay that way for the second round?
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
Good clean start, slightly slow there from Priscilla Stavo of Brazil, but as expected, it is the American Felicia Stansel who does take control as they approach the first berm, takes it nice and high up on the tracks, and therefore covers herself from the very impressive Dutch rider in Laura Schmolders.
Yeah, really nice run here from the American, with Schmolders really pushing. We'll see down this straight through this pump section how much momentum. Well,
we've seen a few riders lose it, aren't we?
Dutch rider takes the lead from the American, so it is Schmolders in front for a clear victory.
And she did it comfortably in the finish. That's outstanding from Schmolders. I'm not sure that Felicia Stansel will be overly concerned. She knows she's going to have enough points to go through to that semi-final.
And we are finding it's such a short race, but we are finding the riders switch off quite early in that last straight just to preserve a little bit of energy. And because it is a longer course, as we said, that extra 10 seconds or so, we see a lot of riders, okay, if it's 1, 2 or 3, it doesn't make too much difference. It's all about that one race in the final.
Yeah, they use a phrase, don't they? You don't want to be in too many matches. They don't want to use too much energy up. Look at that, some wonderful images. That is just remarkable. Give you an idea too of just how fast they are going. Sometimes when you sort of see it from certain camera angles, it doesn't necessarily tell a true story, and then you get those images like that. Motorsport's no different, and it just gives you, puts it in context in terms of just how remarkable these athletes are. So it will be Schmolders, Stansel, Etienne, and that's how it did finish. Mikkelsen of Canada fourth. Suvarova of ROC in fifth. And Priscilla Stavo running out of top 6 from Brazil. So at the moment, lots of pressure on Stavo and Suvarova. They're going to need to have some top 3 finishes in their third and final round if they are to beat the 4 that leave this group and move into the semi-finals.
Well, we are seeing a dominance from the French, the Dutch and the USA in this Olympic Games so far. Concentration, really need to see. This is Reynolds from Australia. Also in the race is Saya Sukakibara. And a little fact, she is from the hometown where I grew up, Helensburgh, and she has the same coach as I had when I was racing and training in the gym, Troy Fisher, all from Helensburgh. We had a population of about 2,000 when Troy and I started racing BMX, and now the famous Sukakibara, brother and sister.
So Zoe Claessens, Lauren Reynolds, Vanetta Pedersen, Manon Valentino, Beth Shriver, and Saya Sakakibara are your athletes in Heat 3, their second run. So 2 Australians.
Okay, riders, random start.
So Kakibara looking to try and live up to the billing after a disappointing first round heat. Much better start from both the Australians. In fact, they take the lead early. This is good from the Australians as they come up round that first berm. Nicely done. Good to see though. Plenty of pressure still coming from the American though.
In second place, Great Britain putting pressure on the leader from Australia.
It's the French rider, Manuel,
Manuel,
who is happy just to sit back there in second place.
Well, Saya Kookaburra, she was the one of the favourites. Oh, she might be losing a little bit of pump speed at the moment, but it'll be a good result after crashing out of that first run. The 2 Australians coming in.
Yep, Bethany Shriever of Great Britain will take this heat, and she does it comfortably, but much better from the 2 Australians. Lauren Reynolds will finish in second place. Zoe Claessens of Switzerland in third, and Saya Sakibara will end up finishing in fourth and picking up valuable points.
This is one of the closely contended races that we've seen in the finish line for those points. Kookaburra went out fast in the lead, but she was under pressure and couldn't bring it home. She ended up in fourth place, so a lot changed in this last half of the BMX race.
So, Saya Sakikabara, she now has 10 points through the 2 heats. Her fellow countrywoman Laura Reynolds, she's got 5 points. Bethany Shriever of Great Britain, 2 points. And Zoe Claessens of Switzerland with 5 points. So still some work to be done from the likes of Manon Valentino, Pedersen of Latvia, and the Australian Saya Sakikabara. Lots of pressure with 1 run to go. Just confirming those points, those accumulated points. And now it is those athletes in the group of 6 in the 4th heat, their second run. And interesting to see no New Zealand rider here. So, in fact, she now does come. Petch took a big tumble in that first heat, landed heavily. Do go through that, so we have, in fact it is the Japanese rider who is not on the start line. That is terrible news for the locals here. Takayama Sei of Japan, she also crashed, so she is out. She clearly feels that her injuries were too severe. So we've got Elise Willoughby of the United States, one of the pre-games favourites, Rebecca Petch of New Zealand, Dominica Esfero of Ecuador, and Judy Boer of the Netherlands alongside of them as we get away. Very good start. Willoughby of the United States as expected, but good challenge once again coming from the Dutch rider Judy Boer, and the New Zealander really making a big move here from Petch. She needs some valuable points. She's doing everything right at the moment. She just can't afford to get the yips on this final burn where she crashed heavily last time. So does the New Zealander now moving into second place. Great race though coming from, once again, the Dutch rider who looks to be trying to take complete control of this particular heat, Judy Boer.
Well, Boer is really looking good here for the Netherlands. She had a good race in round 1. She's got a lot of competition there, just pushing through to the finish from the American rider, Elise Willoughby. And she didn't have a good start, so a very good finish from Willoughby.
Yeah, Willoughby, Boer and Petch. And Petch, the New Zealander, she'll be absolutely delighted to get a number on the board after crashing heavily. Aramova of ROC finishing in 4th. Just have a look here. It's a very wide track too. We're not actually seeing some of the gladiatorial things that you can often see on the BMX around the world on tracks that width-wise are a lot shorter. And so the crashes that we have seen have been more through misjudgment by the riders, maybe coming into certain jumps too fast or losing a little bit of momentum or coming too low on too much of an angle on the berms.
You can see a lot of the women are casing the jumps. They're trying to decide whether to jump them or to moonwalk through them, and they are casing some of the jumps, which is just taking so much speed off some of these riders. Elise Willoughby, she's run round 1 and 2.
Well, there is a real battle there, isn't there, for those 4 places out of this group between Pech, Aramova and Azvedo of Ecuador, all 3 sitting on 8 points. Of course, the Japanese rider out after taking a heavy spill in her first race of the day. So that completes the second round for our women. And up next, it will be round 3 for the men. 24 men in total. After this conclusion of this round, that will get reduced to 16.
One thing I find very interesting about BMX is that they try to keep their gear ratios very confidential. It's like that secret weapon. They don't discuss what gearing they're going to use on each of the tracks. They keep it to themselves.
Yeah, and we should just explain what we mean by gearing. So we're talking about the big chain ring on the front. That will have a certain number of teeth, and each one of those teeth is allocated a number. So in road cycling, traditional is 53 teeth is the big chain ring on the front of your bike, and then you've got the little cogs at the back. In BMXing, they'll only have 1 cog on the back. However, we have seen a little bit of an innovation, and we'll talk about that as we get back through the men's race. We might just see a rider with 2 gears, and so the more small cog on the back, that'll also have a number of teeth, so you then have a ratio. So in road cycling, your big one on the front might be a 53, your small one on the back might have 11 teeth, and that would be known as a 53-11. What gear ratios are they traditionally running in BMX? Give us some sort of range.
Well, it's quite a big range, different type of riders, smaller type of riders. As we said, they ride the longer cranks, around 180 in the men, but it's very, very secretive about gear ratios that they ride. I mean, it wouldn't mean anything to say what I was riding in the under-8 girls World Championship, but
there's a good example of that's a reasonably big front chain ring for a BMX bike.
Yeah, it looks like around a 52.
So almost a road setup on a BMX bike.
Yeah, and you can see disc brakes now also coming into the play with BMX racing, just on the rear, no front brake. But other riders will still be riding rim brakes, so it's just a personal preference, disc brakes versus rim brakes in BMX.
Yeah, the disc brakes will grab a little bit quicker. You don't probably need to squeeze them as much, but it will be a personal preference. And again, the gear ratio. Some riders, just with their physiology, the way they prefer to ride a bike, like leaning on a slightly bigger gear, so they like to have to put just a little bit more pressure on. Others will like to have a really nice high cadence. You'll see them spinning a lot more.
Yeah. Well, over recent years in BMX, as the jumps have been getting bigger, not particularly at this Games, but ramps getting higher and jumps getting bigger. We've seen the cyclists in the men traditionally getting bigger and stronger as well. So instead of being very small and fast, they want to be big and strong and also obviously be able to pedal. But it's all about that power output off the gate. It's all so important. So we're seeing a lot of a bigger build in the BMX.
Well, it's once it became an Olympic sport back in 2012 in terms of the sport going to another level. At the moment you put the Olympics a gold medal up for grabs, you see a lot more riders coming in, and then you start to see a real push in innovation. You start to see a real emphasis going back on sports science as they search for that elusive 1% in performance. And you know, I'm pretty sure that if you go back to 2012 to what we see now in 2021, you already see, like I say, different body types, different equipment being used, and probably with the greatest respect, I would suggest maybe a slightly higher skill set as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, until just recently introducing it to the Olympic Games, it was a very fun sport, and it became very serious as we look at the men's racing standings for the quarterfinals.
Yep, so far it's all about those riders at the top. It's if you have just joined us, your points are allocated based on where you finish. So if you finish first, you get 1 point, and it will be the 4 riders out of each of the 4 heats with the lowest 4 scores that will go through to those semi-finals. That's a great example of it. Dode there with 2 wins and therefore just the 2 points. A number of riders will be happy to play the percentages through the heats to just save a little bit of energy, just to say, hey, I've got through to the top 16, I'm happy with that. When they get through to the semi-finals, yeah, things start to change. They don't tend to leave too much out. They tend to put a lot more out onto the track because 16 becomes 8 for the final.
And you never know what's going to happen in the next round, the next run, so riders really trying to finish as high placed as possible, as we're just about to see the start of the 3rd run for the men.
Alex Lindberg there of South Africa. We also saw the Japanese rider, Nagasako Yoshitaku, Kai White of Great Britain, who rode brilliantly in his previous race. And then we've got Romain Mathieu of France, Corbin Chirard of the United States, and Sylvain Andre of France. And we're expecting France, the United States, Great Britain. They were the 3 athletes from the previous race who dominated. Can some of those other riders change the script? It is Sylvain Andre who has the 2 wins from 2 races with 2 points. Kai White from his 2 races has 5 points. Romain Mathieu of France, after 2 races, sits on 5 points. And then it gets interesting for riders 4, 5 and 6 down. Nagasako of Japan, well, he has 9 points. Corbin Chirard also has 9 points. And it's going to be a lot of work for Alex Lindberg. In fact, I'm not sure Alex Lindberg can qualify from that out of South Africa. Through 2 races has 12 points, so he has finished last in both of his heats.
So the last run for these men today in the quarterfinals, all important.
So Sylvain Andre, number 3 there. First of the 2 French riders. Number 100 is Romain Mathieu. Then it is Lindberg of the United States.
Random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
Very good start actually coming from the American on that occasion. In fact, Kai White, I should say, of Great Britain got away brilliantly as well. So very good first up straight for all of these riders. But it is Corbin Chirard of the United States wanting to try and make a statement. And then there is the 2 French riders of Sylvain Andre and Romain Mathieu.
They don't want to take too many risks at this point, because all these riders have had 2 good runs already as they come into the finish quite close.
And it will be Sylvain Andre who will win this and make it 3 from 3. But good performance from Corbin Chirard. He needed that to try and get himself through to the semi-finals. A much better performance, but you can just have a look at how spent the riders are when they do cross the line. Kai White there of Great Britain. As we look at our race winner, and boy, I tell you what, he's making a statement, isn't he? 3 wins from 3 races for the Frenchman.
As we see the replay here, how tightly contested it was from start to a finish. And we've got Chirard in front in the first corner, Sylvain Andre in second. Nagasako in 3rd place at this point.
And just have a look at it. I just love that. They just throw their bikes at it, throw that front wheel out. And as we get through the semi-finals, we're going to see a lot more of that, aren't we? We're going to see you know, we use that term, you're going to throw a blanket over the first three athletes. It's going to be sometimes very hard to call as a commentator as well. So if you do hear us go, we'll have to go to the photo. It's just because we don't want to call it wrong either. Generally, often your winner can tend to present themselves out in front, but it can get pretty tough as you go back through second, third, fourth and fifth. But it is the beauty of the sport. You're dealing with such small percentages. Just confirming there that Corbin Chirac, Romain Mathieu, Kai White and Sylvain Andre have qualified for the semi-finals. Not such good news for the local Nagasako Yoshitaku.
He gave it a good push in that last run, but unfortunately just not enough. So now we see our top four who have qualified to go through to the semi-finals tomorrow. And Sylvain Andre's already into the interviews while still trying to catch his breath. And that's the thing about BMX racing. There's not much breathing going on out on the course, but once you cross that finish line, you're really trying to get the oxygen in.
Now this is what they call the mix zone, so all the athletes do have to go past the media contingent. That's at all events. They don't have to talk to media, but you know, clearly they do like to talk to their country's media, and some of them are more than happy to talk to all the media. And that is just one of the prerequisites of being an athlete at the Olympic Games. As we now go to the final run for those athletes in Heat 2. So we've got Nick Kamen of the Netherlands. We've got James Palmer of Canada. We've got Nicolas Torres of Argentina. Renato Rezende of Brazil. And we've got Helvis Barras of Latvia. And then we've got Twan van Gent of the Netherlands. And it is Kamen who leads through 2 rounds with 3 points, and then it is his fellow countryman Twan van Gent who sits also on 3 points, and then Nicolas Torres of Argentina after 2 races has 7 points.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
And they get away all cleanly. Very good start once again from Nick Kamen of the Netherlands, his fellow countryman Twan van Gent as well. So it's the Netherlands 1 or 2. They take high up on the boom, get the speed, the kick out of it, in control. 1-2 for the nation of Holland.
It's absolutely amazing to see Kamen come out of gate 8 and just back himself to have that power. It's the 2 riders from the Netherlands. It's Van Gent with the mischievous 2 gears on the back.
And then I think it's the rider out of Brazil, Renato Rezende, in 3rd place. And so it will be the Netherlands 1-2 and Brazil 3, Canada 4. And it is Kamen over Van Gent. And those athletes well and truly through to the semi-final. So the Dutch starting to make just a little bit of a statement. And let's not kid ourselves, the riders will be aware of what other riders are doing in other heats. And there will just be just trying to sort of, you know, send a little message, just trying to maybe just rattle maybe a more fancied rider, or a rider that perhaps comes in with a bigger reputation, just saying, hey, I am here. I'm not having to necessarily deal with the weight of expectation, but I'm feeling really good.
Oh yeah, the Dutch certainly take their BMX very seriously in the Netherlands. It's such a fantastic sport for youngsters.
And this here, they can talk to their family overseas. So this is great. And most of the venues, the athletes, and I'm not sure how they register to do that, but they'll have their families in their countries via, I'd assume, in some sort of Zoom-type technology, and they can actually come and have a chat to their families. And that's because simply under the COVID protocols, no spectators and there's no room for family members to attend these Olympic Games. So a wonderful initiative from the IOC and from the organisers.
Yeah, very dominant performances there from the Dutch. And in cycling, they won a gold medal yesterday in the women's individual time trial with Annemiek van Vleuten. So morale is high in the Dutch camp. Van Gent just reflecting on his rides.
We'll now just confirm who will, from this group, go through to those semi-finals, and there you go. So we've got Nick Kamen, Twan van Gent, we've got Renato Rezende of Brazil, and Nicolas Torres from Argentina. So they will compete in the semi-finals. Semi-finals, again, they'll have 3 runs, and 8 of the 16 will end up making the final. The final is a one-off race. Give you an idea there of just what the riders are looking at as they get in behind the gate. And now just warming down, that's what they call that, just warming down, just trying to loosen the legs up a little bit, flushing your lactate that might be in there. As we come now to the third and final run for those competitors in Heat 3. Simon Marquardt of Switzerland, Evgeny Klashenko, Tore Navrastrad, and of the Netherlands we've got Joris Hermansen. We've got Vincent Pallion of Colombia. Joris Dode of France.
Riders ready, watch the gate.
So Joris Dode, closest to camera, gets a great start. Now he takes control because he's a bike length ahead here. Now he has options in terms of how he takes the berm. He does go high, pushing all the riders behind him up. And we immediately see the rider from Switzerland, Simon Marquardt. He takes a bit of a tumble.
Well, extraordinary. We've seen going into the first berm, riders from gate 1 and 8 generally first and second. But Dode is out in front, followed by the rider from Netherlands, Joris Hermansen, and they look very comfortable to go in 1-2.
Yes, so it will be Dode who will take this. It will be Hermansen in second place, and third will go to the man from Norway, Navrastrad. And that's how it finishes, and we will very shortly confirm which 4 riders out of the third heat end up going through to that semi-final. And just a big tumble coming there, and you just, as a commentator, you just sort of want to go, ouch, because they do land very heavily. You're always wanting to try and just time it so you come down naturally on that backside of the jump. You don't want to flat land, which basically means you've got so much power that you just end up landing your bike hard, flat on the ground. Great demonstration of how you take those jumps, those bumps from Dode and Hermansen of the Netherlands.
Well, the BMX riders are wearing very protective gear that doesn't rip so easily when they crash. It does state in the UCI rules they are not allowed to ride in Lycra, as we now see the quarterfinals qualification riders.
Well, this is good news too for Colombia, but let's go through that. So it will be Dode of France, it will be Hermansen of Norway, and we've got Tore Navrastrad, as mentioned, Joris Hermansen of the Netherlands, and then also Vincent Pallion of Colombia. So the Colombian does squeak through. Fantastic.
We're about to see the last ride.
So
Heat 4.
Well, 12 riders through to the semi-finals. Which of these 4 will secure a place? Those semi-finals will be held tomorrow, Day 7 of Tokyo 2020.
Well, David Graff and Connor Fields have taken 1 each from this heat. And we have the Australian in there as well, Anthony Dean.
Yeah, so Anthony Dean there. If we do just have a look at the positions at the moment, Anthony Dean has 10 points. Alfredo Campo has 10. They're currently sitting 5th and 6th. Giacomo Fontini, he is in 4th place. Now, he's got 9 points. A real battle for that 4th place to go through to the semi-finals.
Certainly is. The pressure is on his final heat of the men's quarterfinals.
Okay, riders, random start. Riders ready, watch the gate.
Connor Fields, the American, look at how aggressive he is out of the start, just trying to get half a bike length. If you can get half a bike length in front, you control the corner. And nicely done from the defending champion once again. We see Graff of Switzerland happy just to sit back in 3rd place at the moment. What is happening with the Australian here? Anthony Dean, he's got some work to do if he is to try and qualify. But I've got to say, Giacomo Fontini of Italy doing everything right at the moment. It's going to be close.
Yeah, definitely not going in the favour of the Australian at the moment, and it is a fight there back for the 3rd, 4th and 5th positions as we see Connor Fields a superb ride once again.
Yeah, he's going to do it easy, Connor Fields. And then it will be the man from Ecuador, Alfredo Campo, who finishes in 2nd place. A good performance from him. Graf of Switzerland. Look what it means to Campo, because that will be good enough to get him through to the semi-finals, meaning Giacomo Fantoni of Italy and Anthony Dean of Australia are the 2 riders who will drop out. Connor Fields will end up winning this group across the 3 heats with a total score of 4 points. David Graf with 6. And Carlos Alberto Ramirez, well, he'll finish 3rd with a total of 11 points. So those 4 riders going through to the semis.
Yeah, was certainly pressure on in this final heat of the men's quarterfinals. It was all to gain and all to lose, but the qualifiers come from USA, Switzerland, Colombia, and Campo also getting through to the semi-finals. And tomorrow's a new day as we look at these beautiful replays. Certainly not a good day for the Australian. There would have been more than 4 years preparation going into the 3 runs. Just didn't have a good start with a crash in the first run. But we can just see how happy Campo is with that ride. As he comes into the finish, we see some emotion from the Ecuadorian.
Well, it does mean a lot, doesn't it? But what we have seen right across so many Olympic sports is those sort of athletes that might not be seeded as high actually getting through. A number of actually causing some big upsets in terms of winning medals. Tunisian winning the 400-metre freestyle in the pool. Remarkable. So there it is. Connor Fields, David Graf, Ramirez and Campo are the 4, just confirming that have qualified. Very much the United Nations, isn't it?
Certainly is. A very good field of BMX riders here at the Tokyo Olympics. From both the men and the women, we're going to see some exciting racing in the semi-finals and finals tomorrow.
We've got one more round for the women to come, so all 24 riders will have one more ride each. In fact, we are down to 23 because we did lose the Japanese rider after a very heavy crash. Hatakeyama Sei, she crashed heavily in her first heat, didn't start in the second, so that field of 24 naturally now being reduced to 23. We don't wish that upon any athlete. We hope that she does recover well and is back to see her on the World Cup scene, and again, hopefully in Paris in 3 years' time. So, Mariana Pajon, she'll start again. She has won both of her heats. She is the defending Olympic champion, and I guess how do you get inside the head of Mariana Pajon? How do you beat this remarkable athlete? Is there anything you can do? Because she's showing at the moment that she doesn't got an incredible skill set, but it's backed up by power as well.
Yeah, she's come out in unbelievable form to take first place in her first 2 runs. It might be a perfect 3 for Pajon, but it's just that experience of knowing how to handle the games, you know, that balance between nervousness and excitement, and being relaxed as well. So obviously she has the experience of big championships and games and the pressure, and these Olympics are a little bit more, I guess, calm than the most Olympics, with less atmospheric things going on around the place. So for the riders that are new to the games, it can be quite overwhelming in the athletes' village, everything and the pressure from home and from the media. But for riders like Pajon, she's going to be very hard to beat.
And just confirming those 16 semi-finalists. Alfredo Campo of Ecuador squeezing in, as did Carlos Ramirez of Colombia, David Graf of Switzerland. Keep an eye on him. I think he'll take it up another level when it does come to the semi-final. The American, the defending champion, Connor Fields, and the strength of Europe. One thing missing though, the Australians. So there's not too many sports where Australia don't feature, but hey, that is the way it goes. There are such small percentages. So we've had a look now at the track here. What do you make of it?
I think it's really a power endurance course rather than those big technical jumps and difficult parts. It's more They say that they're trying to develop and create a course here in Tokyo that's equally suited to the men and the women. So not too technical, but very important to keep the flow of the speed going. And obviously, we've said it a few times, it's longer than most courses, which can be a big difference, whether it's 5 or 10 seconds longer. It's a huge difference for BMX races that have been shorter. So for the preparation and training, for how long they can put and sustain and repeat those power outputs, I think it's a very fair course. It's going to see your best BMXer land on top of the podium.
Yeah, so we often use the words speed endurance, strength endurance. Well, this clearly is speed endurance, but there is an element of strength more so than probably what you traditionally get in BMXing. And I think it's a really good analysis there that this is not maybe the most technical track in the world. And so therefore, if you can get off to a good start and you can get clear, you can actually control much of it. And I'll talk about that. You'll see a lot of street racing, criterium racing with standard road bikes, and anytime you come into a 180-degree turn, you always want to try and be a bike length or half a bike length in front of the rider on the inside or the outside, and therefore you can control the corner. And we've seen that off the start, how important that first straight is leading into that first berm, that 180-degree left turn.